So my blood pressure was 200 over 110. And they checked it manually. They checked it I don't know how many times. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. Today I'm going to be doing a birth story for you guys. I just wanted to formally introduce y'all to Symphony. So this is her. But yeah, Symphony, she is 8 weeks and 1 day today. She was born on July 8th, 2021. Her due date was August 7th, 2021. So she did come about 5 weeks early. So a little background. I was put on modified bed rest at the end of May due to elevated blood pressure. Hi, Mama. Hi. Hey. I was put on modified bed rest due to elevated blood pressure, and then also low weight gain or no weight gain during the pregnancy, and then also, hey Mama, and then also it was putting her at risk of low birth weight. So I was put on modified bed rest to see if that would improve. Unfortunately, it did not. My blood pressure just continued to become elevated at all of my doctor's appointments, and pretty much I was diagnosed with mild preeclampsia. I also had very bad swelling in my lower extremities. I also had a little bit in my upper extremities in my hands. So yeah, I ended up going into the hospital, I believe originally around, let's see, I'm gonna get my phone out because I have some notes. So I'm gonna see, because I was in the hospital, I ended up being in the hospital twice. So yeah, I'm just gonna start back based on my notes and kind of run you guys through everything. So she's born a month early. She was born at 35 and 6 days. On June 24th, I was admitted to the hospital for pregnancy-induced hypertension and mild preeclampsia. My blood pressure in my OB's office, it was around 168 over 100, which is not normal for me. Hey, it's not normal for me at all. I was not put on blood pressure medications at that time. My doctor just really wanted to have me rest and see if we could control it. But like I said, it was not improving with rest, mainly just because of some of the stressors that I still had were going on, like my baby shower, because my baby shower was June 19th. And then at my next appointment, it was the day of, on June 24th, I ended up being admitted for high blood pressure. And I will be including some clips that we got in the hospital, as well as any pictures of anything that relates to what I'm talking about, and you'll probably see it in like one of these corners. I'll put everything, or it'll be like a slideshow at the end. We'll see. But yes, I was admitted June 24th for the high blood pressure. At that time, my proteins were probably like barely elevated at the time. I think they were like maybe 280s, but not really bad at all. So it was mainly just the blood pressure. And in the hospital, at that time, they still did not put me on any blood pressure medications. Symphony, mamas. Mamas. Hi, baby. believe I was in the hospital for 4 days because I went in on a Thursday and I got out either Sunday, I think, something like that time. So when I got home, I was put on strict bed rest at that time. So I went from modified to strict. So I was at home, I think, for about a week or so, and then I had another doctor's appointment. So yeah, on July 1st, I had another appointment with my OB. I went into the office and my blood pressure was 174 over 103 at that point. So guess what? I was admitted again, and that time I was diagnosed with mild preeclampsia. And so the second time that I went into the hospital, I believe like that morning of the appointment, my blood pressure was like 160s, I believe, systolic. I'm not sure what the bottom number was, but I don't believe it was in the hundreds. It might have been close to the hundreds, but I don't believe it was in the hundreds yet. So I did not really have that. I don't think I had really any symptoms. I think I was asymptomatic. I think if anything, I was having headaches, but that was it. I don't think I had really any other symptoms, just the headaches. And they weren't that intense. It would kind of just be in the mornings, and then it would get better. Like after I ate, lay down, it would get better, but it wasn't that bad. And then the swelling, I already had swelling in my left leg, but my right leg, as time went on, my right leg also became not as bad as the left, but it was pretty close. Like they both were pretty elevated. So I'll include pictures of what they look like. I don't think I have a before, but I know I took pictures in the hospital, so I'll include some of those if I can or remember to. So the second time I went into the hospital, I was there from the 1st until after I gave birth. I ended up spending the 4th of July in the hospital. Mamas. Symphony. What are you doing? Symphony, wake up. Little girl. Which was not fun because at that point, even like the 4 days, I was just over being in the hospital because I'd already been there. I was tired of the hospital food. I was tired of everything. I just wanted her to. I wanted to wait, but I wanted to go home and do it. But I knew at that point there was no chance that I was going home, and that's pretty much what my OB said. She was like, "You're gonna stay until you give birth." So that's what ended up happening. So on the morning of July 8th at midnight, they came in to check my vitals, and I was sitting up on the side of the bed, just like watching TV or whatever, not doing anything. So my blood pressure was 200 over 110. And they checked it manually. They checked it I don't know how many times. Hey, mama. Yeah, they kept checking it, and it was still like 200 over like 110, 115. And so they ended up starting an IV on me. They called the on-call OB, and they ended up giving me IV labetalol to lower my blood pressure. And I was on every monitor possible. Baby girl was fine. Like, she wasn't having any type of effects from me having the high blood pressure. She was her usual self, kicking up a storm in there. And I think I have, your little headband came off, mama. See if I can get it back on with one hand. Here we go. So yeah, she was perfectly fine. They had her on the monitors. Everything was normal. I think when I was both times that I was in the hospital, and even like a little bit before I went into the hospital, I did have mild contractions, but I still am not sure, because of how everything panned out, if they were true contractions or just like Braxton Hicks contractions, because I was really dehydrated. I believe like the initial time I went in, I was dehydrated, but not enough to get IV fluids. They just had me push fluids. So that's what pretty much started the contractions to start happening that early at 35 weeks. But yeah, I did not get to really experience contractions. So yeah, I don't know if they were true contractions or not. But so into more of what happened. Well, it was that morning. I don't know if I said night, but it was the morning of July 8th. So like I said, it was midnight. They started the IV labetalol. I did not sleep at all that night. I was so tired. My husband, he initially was here at home, just because he has to work, and it was too much for him to have to stay there and then try to go there, then go to work, and then go back to the hospital. So he was at home at the time, but I did end up calling him, and he ended up coming to spend the night with me. Luckily, they let him in with COVID and everything. I was fortunate that he was able to come in, and also other family member, not to stay but to visit. So I'm currently editing this video, and I noticed that I left a lot of stuff out. I'm not sure if this will be a two-part video or if I'm just gonna include everything into one video, but it is going to be a long video. But I wanted to include, so my husband, he is in the Air Force, he's military, and so I believe like a week or 2 weeks prior to when I initially went into the hospital, he had left out of state for a annual tour, or not tour, but like an annual training session that they have to do. And he was gone. So that was like part of my stress with like the baby shower. I had family helping me, but it was just a fact, like he wasn't going to be there. So that's where some of the stress that I was having came from. But when I went into the hospital the first time, he had to get a emergency leave from his commander to allow him to come back to Texas and be able to be with me in the hospital, because at that time my OB was not sure whether she was going to induce, well, I wasn't critical or unstable enough to where she would induce me early, but she just didn't know. Like the whole time, like I said, it was just a watch and wait type of thing. So because he was out of state, I was like, I really need you to like be here just in case, you know, she induces me or something happens, you know. So I just wanted to include that little bit in. But yeah, so that morning, around, because like I said, I did not sleep at all. And I remember My morning nurse, she came in and checked me out and everything. And like during the course of the morning, my blood pressure did even back out to like 150, 140 systolic, and diastolic was like, I believe, like probably in the 90s. So, but it wasn't as bad as what it was. So she came in, they checked my vitals that morning again, because they had, like, it was every like 15 minutes for, I think, an hour, and then it was every 30. So like I said, I did not get any sleep that night. But yeah, she came in to do her morning assessment, and I was like, you know, I haven't been to sleep, I'm gonna get some rest. So I didn't eat breakfast, I just slept through breakfast. I think my husband had left that morning. Since everything was fine, he left that morning and went ahead to work. So yeah, I just pretty much slept in. I didn't eat breakfast or anything. And I remember it was around lunchtime or 11, somewhere in there, 11 or 12. And I remember my OB came in to see me, you know, and she was going through everything, because she would come in, I believe, like every day or every other day. She would come in to do her rounds and pretty much just update me on the labs and what the plan was. And the plan had been pretty much play it by ear. We're just going to go day to day, see how you are, see how your blood pressures are. And in the hospital, my blood pressures, like, they were perfect. Pretty much they would run like from 115 to at most probably like 130s systolic. And then diastolic was like in the 80s, like perfect. But for whatever reason, whenever I went home, that's when my blood pressures would be elevated. Just because, I guess, you know, outside stressors, and even though like I would just be laying around or whatever, I just had a lot of different distractions or things to think about or do. So I don't know, that's why I ended up being in the hospital. But yeah, so she came in and she was like, oh, your blood pressures this morning were perfect, because at that point I had been on the labetalol, so they were like 110, like they were low, like 110s, 115s. And she's like, oh, your blood pressures are good. And I was like, oh, they weren't last night. And then she was like, what do you mean? And so somewhere in shift change, or I don't know, they ended up, because like I said, she was not on call. They called the on-call OB, and he ordered the labetalol. So she did not get the report from the nurse, the night shift nurse, I'm guessing, about what happened, or the day, like, I don't know, somewhere in the line of communication it got lost, and she was not notified until I told her when she came in to do her rounding that my blood pressure was like 200 over 110. So another bit that I wanted to add, and also if you hear like breathing or like little noises, that's my daughter. But another bit I wanted to add in this part of the video is that in no way am I blaming the nurses. I'm a nurse myself, so I understand that things can happen, and that might, you know, affect my OB not knowing what was going on with me. It should have been reported, but I understand things happen, so I'm not mad at any of them. Like, all of them were very sweet to me. I pretty much knew all of them by the time, like, I was discharged, because I had been there for so long. So, like, I knew all of them from antepartum, postpartum, like, the same nurses, they rotated, so I knew all of them. So yeah, I'm not blaming them in any way, but at the same time, it does bother me a little bit, because of the high mortality rate in the African American community, and with a blood pressure as high as mine was, that's not something to play around with, regardless. So that is something that I was worried about going into the whole pregnancy, but I did trust my OB. But that's just something that unfortunately we have to worry about going into our pregnancies. And so at that point she was like, we're inducing you like now. And so I was like, okay, you know, but the thing was, I was upset because like I said, I slept through breakfast. It was lunchtime. I had just woken up right before she came in. I woke up, ordered lunch, and was waiting on that. And then as soon as she said, "Oh, we're gonna induce you," I was like, "You have to be kidding me!" And like it happened within a matter of like everything happened like so fast. But it was like she said, "We're inducing you." I'm like, okay. And then right after they bring in the lunch tray, and I'm like, I can't have that. And I was so mad because I was so hungry. And they're like, well, I was like, I can't have that. So they had to take it back. And so I was in, let me think if I can remember what unit I was in. I was in antepartum initially. I was in the antepartum unit. And they ended up transferring me to labor and delivery. And I'll insert, I believe I have a picture of the room. So I'll just, like I said, I'll insert anything that I have. But yeah, so they transferred me to labor and delivery. And I still had the IV in. So that was good. Because they, like I said, with being like dehydrated and everything both times, like it was so hard for them to get IV. And like I said, my hands were swollen, so that also made it difficult. So yeah, I know that at one point, it might have been twice, that they had to stick me like 6 times. I think it was twice that they had to stick me like 6 times. So yeah, I was so happy I did not have to get, so I thought I did not have to get poked anymore. So yeah, so I already had the IV. So they started magnesium for the preeclampsia. They started that, which that is very, like, I hated it. It is every bit of what they say it is. It felt like my whole body was just on fire. And I've never felt that ever in my life. And I hated it. So yeah, they started the magnesium. Luckily from the second time I was admitted, they ended up giving me a fan that which I still have it. It just clips on the side of the bed. They were like pretty much that sure. So I took that thing and they hooked it on the bed, and I was so happy because I was burning up. So yeah, they started that. Then, so when they transferred me, there was a different nurse in that unit. So she did her assessment, and a little bit later my OB came in, and she was like, okay, well, the plan, or pretty much asked me, what do you want to do? So yeah, my OB, she pretty much came in. Up until that point, I had not had a cervical exam. So she was going to, I believe, try Cervidil initially first to soften my cervix. But whenever she went in to do the assessment, my cervix was too high. So that ended up leading to them going to go ahead and give me an epidural. Initially in my birth plan, I wanted to have a natural birth. I did not want any medications. Unless, my whole thing was I wanted to pretty much play it by ear with my pain tolerance and go from there. But I did not want to initially start off with pain medications or anything like that. And I did not want an epidural. But because my cervix was too high, it was just too painful for her to even examine me. So I decided to go ahead and get the epidural, which was horrible experience. That's when I found out that whenever she was born, because of the IV labetalol, her respirations and heart rate dropped. So whenever she was born, my husband said that she did cry for a short time, and then right after that she stopped breathing. So they did have to intubate her.